Today we're talking about Porsche to 52 facts about the brand that turned rear engines, racing obsession, tiny design changes, and German stubbornness into one of the most respected car legends on Earth. 1. Porsche did not start with some wild poster car. It started with engineering. Ferdinand Porsche was the kind of person who looked at a machine and immediately thought, this could be better, lighter, faster, and more complicated than necessary. That mindset basically became the whole brand. Before Porsche built its own famous sports cars, Ferdinand Porsche helped design the Volkswagen Beetle. So, one of the most legendary sports car companies on Earth has a family connection to one of the most famous people's cars ever made. From Beetle to 911, that is a weird bloodline, but somehow it makes perfect sense. 3. The first car to officially wear the Porsche name was the 356. It was small, simple, lightweight, and not trying to look like a spaceship. It was basically Porsche saying, we don't need drama. We'll just make the car feel right. Very German. Very dangerous to competitors. 4. The Porsche 911 was originally supposed to be called the 901. But Peugeot had rights to car names with a 0 in the middle, so Porsche changed it to 911. Imagine one of the most iconic names in car history existing because of a naming problem. The 911 is basically a legal workaround that became a religion. 5. The 911 has kept the same basic idea for decades: engine in the back, round headlights, sloping roofline, and the general shape of a car that refuses to retire. Other brands redesign everything every few years. Porsche changes one curve and fans act like archaeologists discovered a new civilization. 6. The 911's rear engine layout should not make sense for a serious sports car. Putting the engine behind the rear axle can make the car tricky, especially at high speed. But Porsche spent decades turning that problem into a personality trait. Most companies fix a flaw. Porsche trains it until it wins races. Before we continue, if you enjoy videos like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. These videos take a lot of time, research, editing, and money to make, and your support really helps us keep going. Thank you. 7. Early 911s had a reputation for being dangerous if you drove them badly. Lift off the throttle mid-corner and the rear could swing around like the car just decided to punish your confidence. Porsche did not make idiot-proof cars. It made cars that asked, are you actually good or just loud? 8. Porsche fans are obsessed with tiny details. Air-cooled or water-cooled, narrow body or wide body, manual or PDK, GT3 or turbo. To normal people, these are all just expensive small sports cars. To Porsche people, these are completely different religions. 9. For years, air-cooled Porsche 911s were treated like the purest version of the breed. No front radiator, distinct sound, mechanical feel, old-school smell. It is the kind of car that makes grown adults say words like soul while looking at an engine they can barely reach. 10. When Porsche moved the 911 from air-cooled to water-cooled engines with the 996 generation, people panicked. Some acted like Porsche had betrayed the ancestors. The headlights changed too, and that made it worse. Porsche fans can survive engine changes, but weird headlights, that's a war crime. 11. The 996 is now having a comeback because the cars people once insulted often become the ones collectors later rediscover. Car culture is funny. First everyone says it is ugly. Then prices go up. Then suddenly it was underrated. 12. The Porsche 911 Turbo is one of the funniest supercars because it does not always scream for attention. A Lamborghini enters like a nightclub explosion. A 911 Turbo can look almost normal to regular people. Then it launches so hard that your organs briefly need a new address. 13. The 959 was Porsche going completely insane in the best way. In the 1980s, it had all-wheel drive, twin turbos, advanced electronics, adjustable suspension, and performance that felt years ahead of its time. It was like Porsche built the future and then made it look like a slightly swollen 911. 14. The Porsche 959 was so advanced and expensive that it became less like a car and more like a technical flex. Other brands were making fast cars. Porsche was making an engineering argument with wheels. 15. The Carrera GT is one of the most respected and feared modern Porsches. V10 engine, manual gearbox, carbon chassis, raw character. It does not feel like a friendly car. It feels like a machine that respects skill and punishes arrogance. 16. The Carrera GT's V10 came from motorsport development. That is why it sounds less like a normal road car and more like a race engine accidentally allowed into traffic. You do not listen to a Carrera GT. You survive the noise. 17. The Porsche 918 Spyder proved Porsche could do hybrid performance without making it feel like a tax benefit. It combined a V8 with electric motors and became part of the holy trinity of hybrid hypercars with the LaFerrari and McLaren P1. Ferrari brought drama. McLaren brought science fiction. Porsche brought a lab report that could destroy you. 18. Porsche's PDK gearbox is so good it annoys manual fans. It shifts brutally fast, it is smart, it makes the car faster, and it removes a lot of excuses. People still love manuals because emotion matters, but PDK is Porsche quietly saying, the computer is better than your left leg. 19. The GT3 is one of the purest modern Porsche products. Naturally aspirated engine, track focus, insane revs, sharp steering, and enough daily usability to make owners convince themselves it is practical. Nothing says practical like a car that screams to 9,000 revolutions per minute on the way to buy milk. 20. The GT3 RS is the version for people who looked at a GT3 and said, nice, but can it be more unreasonable? Bigger aero, more track focus, more noise, more stiffness, more attention. It is basically a street-legal race car wearing license plates as a disguise. 21. Porsche does not only build fast cars. It builds fast cars that can be used. That is the dangerous part. A Ferrari can feel like an occasion. A Lamborghini can feel like a performance. A Porsche can feel like a weapon you accidentally started using every day. 22. The Porsche badge has the Stuttgart horse in the middle. Yes, Ferrari has a horse too. Car logos are basically a secret horse war if you think about it too long. But Porsche's badge also includes elements from the old Württemberg coat of arms, making it feel more like a tiny German history lesson on the hood. 23. Porsche is deeply connected to racing. Not just as marketing, but as identity. The brand built road cars and race cars that constantly fed each other ideas. Porsche's attitude has always been, if it survives the track, maybe it deserves the street. 24. The Porsche 917 is one of the most legendary race cars ever built. It looked low, brutal, and almost unreal. At Le Mans, it helped turn Porsche into a motorsport giant. It is the kind of car that makes modern safety engineers sweat just by existing in a photograph. 25. The 917 was so scary in early development that drivers were not exactly relaxed about it. It had huge speed, huge power, and the calm personality of a missile. Porsche had to work hard to make it stable. The car became legendary. But legends often start as terrifying bad ideas. 26. The Gulf-liveried Porsche 917 from Le Mans with Steve McQueen became one of the most famous race car images ever. Blue, orange, low, loud, cinematic. Some cars become posters. That one became a religion for people who own too many racing books. 27. Porsche has won so much at Le Mans that the race feels permanently connected to the brand. Other manufacturers show up trying to make history. Porsche shows up like it left something there and came back to check on it. 28. The Porsche 956 and 962 were endurance racing monsters. They dominated so hard that they became part of motorsport furniture. Fast, efficient, reliable, and terrifyingly effective. Very Porsche, not always the loudest in the room, just the one still running at the end. 29. The Porsche 935 looked like a 911 that had been stretched into a race weapon. That huge rear, crazy body work, and endurance racing presence made it one of the wildest Porsche race cars ever. It is what happens when a 911 goes to the gym and stops talking to normal people. 30. Porsche made tractors too. Yes, just like Lamborghini. But Porsche tractors feel even stranger because Porsche's public image is so tied to precise sports cars. Somewhere out there, a person can say they own a Porsche and it might be a red tractor, technically correct. Emotionally confusing. 31. The Porsche Cayenne saved the company in the eyes of many people. When it came out, purists screamed. An SUV from Porsche betrayal. Then it sold extremely well and helped fund the sports cars everyone loves. So yes, the SUV people hated helped keep the dream alive. 32. The Cayenne proved something brutal. Enthusiasts complain, customers buy. Forums were angry, dealerships were happy. Porsche learned that a brand can protect its sports car soul while also selling family haulers to rich people with dogs. 33. The Macan did the same thing on a smaller scale. Not as shocking as the Cayenne, but very important for sales. It became the Porsche for people who wanted the badge, the handling, the status, and enough space to pretend they made a responsible decision. 34. The Panamera was Porsche's first serious modern Ford or luxury performance car. When it launched, some people said it looked weird, and honestly, some angles were difficult. But it drove like a Porsche sedan should. Fast, stable, expensive, and slightly offended by the idea of being called a sedan. 35. The Taycan showed Porsche could make an electric car without turning into a silent appliance company. It is fast, low, serious, and still feels like a Porsche. No engine noise, but plenty of speed. Porsche basically said, fine, the future is electric. We'll make it handle. 36. The Taycan also proved that electric cars do not have to look like soap bars. Porsche gave it presence, stance, and proper sports car energy. It was not trying to look weird just because it had batteries. It looked like a Porsche that learned a new language. 37. Porsche's naming system can sound like secret codes. 911, 930, 964, 993, 996, 997, 991, 992. To normal people, that looks like someone spilled numbers on a brochure. To Porsche people, each number has emotional weight. 38. The 993 generation is especially loved because it was the last air-cooled 911. That makes it feel like the final chapter of an old world. Collectors love last of cars because nostalgia turns metal into money very efficiently. 39. The 964 is another fan favorite because it mixed classic looks with more modern technology. It has that old 911 shape but feels more usable than earlier cars. Basically, it is the car for people who want vintage flavor without fully suffering for the aesthetic. 40. Singer vehicle design made old 911s even more desirable by reimagining them with insane craftsmanship. Singer is not Porsche, but it changed how people looked at classic 911s. It showed that the old shape could be turned into something almost like mechanical jewelry. 41. Porsche owners can be weirdly loyal. Someone buys one 911, then another, then suddenly they know paint codes, seat patterns, wheel options, and production years. Porsche ownership can slowly turn a normal person into a walking spreadsheet with driving gloves. 42. The Porsche Boxster helped save Porsche before the Cayenne era. It was more affordable, mid-engine, fun, and brought new buyers into the brand. People sometimes disrespect it because it is not a 911, but that is lazy. The Boxster is one of the reasons Porsche survived and grew. 43. The Cayman is what happens when Porsche puts the engine in the correct place and then has to be careful not to make it too threatening to the 911. Mid-engine balance, sharp handling, compact size. Some people whisper that the Cayman platform could be even better than the 911 if Porsche fully let it off the leash. 44. The Cayman GT4 is proof that Porsche knows exactly what enthusiasts want. Manual gearbox, mid-engine balance, serious suspension, track energy. It is not the most expensive Porsche, but it might be one of the easiest to fall in love with. 45. Porsche's sport chrono clock on the dashboard is a tiny detail that became iconic. It is basically a little performance watch sitting in the middle of the car, reminding you that this machine cares about lap times even when you are stuck in traffic behind a delivery van. 46. Porsche brakes are famous for being serious. Carbon ceramic options can cost a terrifying amount of money, but they also stop the car with brutal confidence. At Porsche speeds, stopping is not a feature, it is a survival system. 47. Porsche colors have their own cult following. Guards red, Miami blue, Python green, speed yellow, chalk, Rubistar, normal people see paint. Porsche people see personality, resale value, production rarity, and an excuse to argue online for 6 hours. 48. The 911 Dakar is one of the coolest recent Porsche ideas because it turns a sports car into an off-road fantasy, lifted suspension, rally inspiration, chunky tires, 911 shape. It looks like someone took a sacred sports car and said, what if we made it dirty on purpose? 49. Porsche rally history is real. The brand was not only about clean racetracks. 911s competed in rallies, and that rough road personality is part of why the Dakar idea made sense. A 911 on gravel looks wrong for about 1 second, then it looks amazing. 50. Porsche design is often accused of being too similar across generations. But that is the trick. Porsche does not chase trends like a nervous fashion brand. It evolves slowly, almost stubbornly. A new 911 looks familiar because Porsche knows recognition is power. 51. Porsche is one of the rare brands that can sell understatement and obsession. At the same time, it can be quiet enough for a banker and sharp enough for a track addict. That is hard to do. Lamborghini sells drama. Ferrari sells myth. Porsche sells the feeling that the engineers are judging your driving. 52. Porsche became legendary because it refused to behave. Like everyone else, the engine stayed in the wrong place. The shape barely changed. The fans argued about details nobody else noticed. And somehow, all of that became the point. Porsche is not the loudest car brand in the world. It is the one that quietly asks, can you actually drive? That was 52 facts about Porsche. If you want the next one, hit like, subscribe, and we'll go into another car brand where engineering, money, ego, and strange decisions somehow created a legend.